Hello, and welcome back to Life Groups. I'm so glad you joined us here tonight. And if this is your first time, thank you so much for coming. I hope you've enjoyed the food and the fellowship so far. And I'm personally looking forward to meeting you if you're not at my group, and I hope to see you on a Sunday. Let's start off first by thanking our hosts for opening up their home. Would you give them a hand of appreciation? Thank you so much. We are so appreciative that you would take the time to open your home up. We know it's not easy, that it's work, but we want to say to you, thank you for doing that. Also, let me make a couple of announcements. First of all, this Friday, we are having a youth and hyphen service, and it's going to be a special one because we have guest speakers, missionaries from Japan. Brother Travis Craig and his wife will be with us. And so I know it's youth and hyphen age, but we're opening up to everyone in the church that wants to come and support this wonderful missionary and his wife. We're going to have a fantastic service. I hope you'll join us. Also, Sunday is going to be a special day because it's Pentecost Sunday. And so we haven't pushed really hard this year for it, but this is going to be a special day. We have a special speaker that's going to be with us, Pastor Sheck Snyder from Life Church San Diego. You're not going to want to miss this Sunday. We're going to have a great time. The choir singing. The Lord's going to be moving. I hope that you'll bring some guests out, and we'll continue to have revival and explosive services like we've been having here at Life Church. Okay, let's go ahead and get into our lesson here tonight. Hopefully you've got notes and a pen, and you got your heart and mind open and ready for the word of the Lord. I want to begin by reading 2 Corinthians 11:24. I'm going to read through verse 29. And this is the Apostle Paul speaking here. And notice what he says. He says, of the Jews, 5 times received I 40 stripes, save one. That means 39 stripes. He said, 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I was stoned. 3 times I suffered shipwreck. A night and the day I have been in the deep. In journeyings often. Notice, in perils of water, robbers of his own countrymen, in perils of heathens, in the city, in the wilderness, in the sea, in perils among false brethren. Verse 27, in weariness, in painfulness, in watchings often, in hunger and thirst, in fastings, in cold and nakedness. And notice verse 28, beside those things that are without, that which cometh upon me daily, the care of all the churches. And I love verse 29. He asked the question. He says, who is weak? I'm not weak. Who's offended? I'm not offended. Paul was teaching us a very valuable lesson. In this game of life, there are going to be times where you're going to get hurt. You're going to get injured. Sometimes, and he listed it, sometimes it's from this area, that area, it's from people, it's from life, it's from health. It comes, they're just going to come. Jesus even made the statement. He said, offenses will come. It's very important that you understand just because you've dedicated your life to God and been born again of water and spirit, you are not exempt from what comes in the game of life. We all are playing this game until we die, the game of life. And there are going to be moments, going to be seasons, going to be times where you're going to get hurt and injured. But Paul said, I love it. He said, who's weak? I'm not weak. Who's offended? I'm not offended. And he taught us something I'm going to teach you here tonight. That in the game of life, sometimes you've got to play hurt. We're going to talk about that tonight, playing hurt. I found an interesting article that I'm going to share with you, written by a doctor to people who have been injured. In your notes, Dr. Alan Goldberg listed these things to help with recovering from injuries. And again, We're all going to suffer hurt and injury in the game of life. In your notes, number 1, he says to seek out the support of your teammates. That's your fill in. Seek out the support of your teammates. His number 1 thing, seek out support from your teammates. I want to give you some valuable lesson and some valuable advice. Whatever you do, when things happen in your life, when things hurt you, things come against you, you get wounded, you get injured, do not sit around hoping somebody hears from God and contacts you and checks on you. Don't do that. This doctor was right when he said, ask for help. And the reason I say this is because I've seen too many people get wounded, hurt, something happens, some kind of disappointment, and they sit around waiting on someone to come to them. And then they get frustrated and they get disappointed and depressed, and it turns into anger. And now they start saying nobody cares. God doesn't care. The church doesn't care. Whatever you do, whenever you're injured, you need to ask for help. Now, I quote this scripture a lot, so it's going to be familiar to you, but Ecclesiastes 4:9 says, 2 are better than 1 because they have a good reward for their labor. Verse 10, for if they fall, the one will lift up his fellow, but woe to him that's alone when he falleth, for he hath not another to help him up. There is no shame in asking for help. As a matter of fact, I encourage it. I teach this often. Do not suffer in silence. Something happens, ask for help. Ask, please, brother, would you pray for me? Please, sis, keep me in your prayers. There's no shame in needing help. Biblically, I'll give you 2 examples. The man with palsy, remember him who Jesus healed? He had 4 friends that hoisted him up on the roof, tore a hole in it, dropped it down where Jesus was teaching. Dropped that man down so Jesus could heal him. There's no shame in asking for help. The lame man at the gate in Acts, the Bible says he was carried there and laid daily. Somebody brought him every day to the gate. They took him as far as they could take him. Eventually, that's when Peter come walking by and the Lord moved on him and God through him healed that man. So whatever you do, always ask for help. Seek out the support of your teammates. Let somebody know. If you're going to the hospital, let somebody know. Let the pastor know. Let the pastoral staff know. If something has been said, if something's been done, let somebody know. If you're suffering, don't do it in silence. Number 2, the good doctor told us, was to work out the muscles. That's your fill in. Work out the muscles. Work out the muscles. Whatever you do, you cannot just lay around. You got to get up and keep moving. You got to move the muscles. This is why you go to physical therapy. Oh, it's not easy. I mean, you're paying people to make you hurt. If you've been to physical therapy, man, you're in there because something hurts and they're just working it out for you. And you got to come back again. Well, the reason why is if you don't work those muscles out, they will not heal the way you need them to heal. So you have to keep moving. You have to work out the muscles. How does this apply to us? Well, when we're wounded, you got to get back up. You can't afford to just lay there. Proverbs 24:16 says, for a just man falls 7 times and gets back up again. We have to make it our habit. I don't want to be known for the times I've fallen. I want to be remembered for the times I got back up. It's our responsibility to work those muscles out, to move, to get up. Can't just lay here in the bed. If we do, we will not recover. You can look through the Bible for people who were wounded by life, and yet they had the same decision that we do. Am I just going to lay here and die? Or am I going to get up? I'm going to keep moving. Joseph, all he had was a dream, and that dream had his brothers try to kill him. One finally had enough conscience to say, let's don't kill him. They sell him into slavery. He goes into slavery. He's in slavery for a long time. When he finally starts to make his way up, life happens again. A woman accuses him of something he didn't do. He's thrown back into jail. But this man had a choice. I'm either going to lay down here and die in the dungeon, or I'm going to get up. And God honored it. And he became second in command over all of Egypt. Job lost his wealth, his livestock, his children, but he got back up. When we're wounded, we can't just lay down, quit. We got to get back up. Even if it's a sin, if it's not someone doing something to you, maybe it's something you did, something that your actions were. Look at Moses. Moses was a murderer, but he got back up. God used him. David was an adulterer and a murderer, but he got back up. God used him. Peter denied that he knew the Lord and started cussing to make sure they understood he was not one of these Christ followers. He denied the Lord 3 times at a time where Jesus really could have used some friends. Don't you know that weighed on his conscience? But he got back up. So you got to work the muscles. You can't just lay there. You got to get back up. You got to move. Number 3, the doctor said, for a person to recover from injury, they must maintain a positive attitude. That's your feeling. They must maintain a positive attitude no matter what. Being positive is powerful. Thinking yourself happy. Don't let anyone tell you it's naivety. You're not naive. No, you're making a conscious decision. I have 2 things to focus on in life, the bad stuff or the good stuff. And if you're going to recover, you have to push off the negative attitude, the depressed attitude, the woe is me attitude. You will get nowhere if you do not change your attitude. You must maintain positive. It's the only way to recover from injury is to get a positive attitude. I read a story once that I thought was fascinating. A man was shipwrecked on an island all by himself. He laid there, and after feeling sorry for himself for a little bit, he began to think, well, I'm still alive. That's something to be happy about. And after that revelation hit him, he said, okay, well, as long as I'm here, I've got to make the best of it. He starts walking through the island. He starts finding materials. He gets enough material, works all day long, gets enough material to build himself a hut to keep him out of the elements, because he knew it's going to be cold, it could be raining. I'm on an island in the middle of nowhere, hoping somebody is looking for me, hoping someone has an idea of where I am. So he builds this hut, starts a little fire, goes out to explore a little bit more. When he returns, somehow the fire has caught the hut on fire. Now just imagine the disappointment for a moment must have hit this man. He's shipwrecked. Now he puts together a hut, and somehow fire that he built burns it down. Well, you know, we talked about last week that the number 1 reason people die in the wilderness is because of shame. Can you imagine how he felt? So the fire catches the hut catches on, and it's just one big heap of fire and smoke. The man sits there, and as he's sitting there, just thinking about his plight, he hears a noise. Help's coming. He looks in the air. The rescue team is on their way. They've spotted him. They circle, land, jump out, grab him. He gets in, and with glee, he says to them, how did you guys find me? And they said, oh, it was easy. We could see your smoke signal. Now think about that for a moment. What a powerful story. That what he thought was another dream, another plan that burned up, and yet God used it for good. Let me tell you something you need to quote to yourself and your children often. All things work together for good to them that love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. Maintain a positive attitude. You never know what God's up to, and you never know how he's going to work it out. Your next one, number 4, the good doctor says here, deal with what is, not what could have been. That's your fill in. Not with what could have been. Now, I just alluded to this with the man on the island shipwrecked. A lot of times when we get injured, we start to have all these thoughts of, oh, if I just would have went left instead of right. If I just would have made this decision instead of that one. And while it's wisdom to learn from our past experiences, that's the way life is designed, for you to experience things and then you learn from them. My dad always taught me, he'd say, son, there's lessons you learn and there's lessons you earn. And what he was saying by that is there's some stuff that you'll learn, and when you refuse to learn it, life has a way of making you pay for it. You'll earn it. But this is how you gain experience. You cannot waste precious time and emotions, hours, minutes, days on focusing on what could have been. You need to learn to deal with what is. If you do not learn to just say, okay, I know this scenario could have happened, but this is where I am. This is what it is. You know, we all have phones with GPSs. Our cars have GPSs. Have you thought lately that the only way for you to get to where you are, to the place you want to be, is the first thing that has to be recognized for your GPS system to work is they have to know where you are. If they can identify with where you are, they can never tell you where you want to go and how to get there. So we must deal with what is. This is where we are now. How do we deal with it? Anytime people get into a crisis, and if they come to me for counseling, and one person's made a mess particularly, and the other person is there, their urge is to just pounce on them. How could you do this? Why would you do that? I always stop them and say, okay, at this point, when the house is on fire and everything is getting burned up, let's not focus on what happened. Let's focus on getting out of the house now. Let's focus on handling what is. Later on, we can reflect and we can make some decisions on how to make this never happen again. But don't live your life thinking about what shoulda, coulda, mighta happened or had been. Deal with what is. When you get injured, this spot's hurt, there's no point wasting any precious energy and emotion on anything else other than let's recover from the injury. And last, his last bit of information for those recovering from injury is to be patient. That's your fill in. Be patient. And boy, this is a hard one. I heard a student, be taught by a teacher, and the teacher was teaching on the benefit and the glory of patience and how everyone should seek after it. And one enthusiastic student there raised his hand and says, well, how long does it take for me to learn to be patient? I thought, that's pretty much all of us. But we have to learn to be patient. Don't rush it. Let things come in their time. Isaiah 40:31 says, they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. Be patient. And oh, it's a hard lesson to learn. And even myself, here I am. I've been teaching patience I've been pastoring 21 years total, something like 22 years total, something like that. And here I am, even myself, having to remind myself, hey, buddy, you teach it. You got to live it. Be patient, because if you become impatient, that'll breed frustration. And the frustration will spill out and it will start to affect other areas of your life. So you got to learn to wait on God, because impatience will cause more trouble. They say if you do too much when you're injured, if you're not patient, let your body heal. then you can cause a second round of injuries that's worse than the first one. So patience pays off. I remember one time being a little boy, I think I was 7 or 8, and my grandmother, she would cook this macaroni that was fabulous. It had she used those long noodles in it. She'd put cheese on it, and hey, she would put tuna fish. Now, before you fish haters start moving your nose up and gagging, it was fabulous. Something about that tuna fish and that cheese. Oh, and I remember asking her to cook it. She said she would. So she put it in the oven and started baking it. And I was starving. And so 10 minutes goes by and I'm just like, oh, Gran, when's that going to be ready? She said it takes 30 minutes and it's only been 10. So we got about 20 minutes more. Well, how long is 20 minutes to an 8-year-old? That's a lifetime. So she was sitting in the living room and I walked in the kitchen. She wasn't there. I looked around and I looked, and on the stove, she had 375. And in my brain, I went, hey, if it takes 20 minutes at 375, what would 500 do? Yeah. So I just eased up and turned that dial up, put it on 500. I just walked on out and waited for my Gran to figure out that I'd helped her. That I'd helped this woman who's been cooking longer than I've been alive. That I give her some help without her knowing it. Well, it wasn't long. I heard her kind of yell out in frustration. And I could tell by the tone of her voice, she wasn't too happy. I come walking in there and she said, why is this on 500? It's burnt. Well, she had to then teach me not to lie because I told her, I don't know. You know how kids are. I don't know. Well, we both knew who did it. She didn't do it. My grandfather certainly didn't do it. But it was my impatience. And because of my impatience, I burnt that macaroni. And you know what my Gran did? This was, 35 years ago, not today. Today, people would say, okay, sugar booger, let's make you some more. She said, okay, you're going to earn a lesson here. I'm throwing it out and you're not getting any macaroni. So I never helped Gran out again. That was the last time I tried to help her out. Now, let me ask you something as we close this lesson. Does God need your help? Let me ask you, does the Creator need your help? No, he doesn't. He needs you to pray, not my will, but thy will be done. And give me the patience to wait on you. I hope you've enjoyed this lesson here tonight. We're about to shift into discussion, and you're going to have a wonderful time discussing which part of this lesson touched you the most. And there's going to be prayer for needs when it's done. God bless you. I'll see you on Sunday.